Oops, wait, hold on.
Wednesday, June 19th. Wake up, wake up. Damon, Bruce, Larry Krueger. Like and subscribe. It is great to have you here. This is a morning that we wake up without Willie Mays in our lives, and that is a huge story here in San Francisco. We will get to that at the end of the show. We know everyone shows up for the latest on the 49ers and the NFL. So, Larry, that's what we're going to give them. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, beautiful day here in the East Bay, and we will get into the Say Hey Kid and his passing at 93. Very, very sad, but we'll get into that later on. And just eager to talk a little sports this morning.
Yeah, well, let's hop in with this. We have a timeline, and timelines matter, as we've been discussing. And we now have a day to get a Brandon Aiyuk deal done, and it's official. 2024 training camp begins July 16th. The rookies report on that day. The veterans get there on the 23rd. The first preseason game is August 10th. But we now know when we need a little you-know-what or get off the pot with Brandon Aiyuk. He needs to either have a contract done by, they hammer this thing home, or he's traded by July 23rd. That is your day, or a holdout will have begun if a deal isn't consummated by then. So at least we now have some parameters on this. And Larry, nothing makes a deal happen faster than a deadline. We have one.
Right. Well, it's a soft deadline. Let's be honest. That's not really the hard deadline.
Right.
It's a very, very soft deadline, but it's a matter of how vital is it in Shanahan's mind to have Aiyuk there for training camp. How vital is it to, the preparation, as far as, the season ahead. What do you need? What do you need out of Aiyuk to feel like he's ready to roll? But yeah. And the one thing that makes you think, like, we don't know what's going on, right? We're not talking to Lynch. We're not talking to Aiyuk. We're not talking to Aiyuk's agent. We're not talking to Parag. We're just guessing, reading tea leaves, little report here, little report there. So
we're interpreting, cryptic TikTok videos. That's what we're working with.
Right. But to me, if you're looking for what's real, what's not, to me, it's like, I think it's pretty safe to say that the two sides are not close and not talking, and that there's some concern, just because that's what TJ Hushmanzada, who's talking to Aiyuk, is saying. That's what Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, who's giving you some reporting on this thing, what he's saying, that basically, the two sides aren't in a great place, and they're not making a lot of progress, and it seems to be somewhat not of an impasse. The word impasse has not been used, but it sounds like, based on multiple reports, that they're not close. They're not exchanging offers. And this thing, what are we, 40 days from camp or whatever it is? So it's one of those things that doesn't really matter right now. All it matters is it gets done by the time they get rolling. And if they could get it done by the day they report to camp, all the better.
Look, it's 35 days. 35 days between now and, July 23rd. Like you said, it's a soft deadline, but anything after that date would be an official holdout. Like, that would be the beginning of that. So I would think that if you can't bridge whatever gap exists between the two parties within the next 35 days, you're probably not getting the deal done, right? I mean, 35 days is a long time to work on anything.
Well, I mean, the deadline always makes people move. I also think there's going to be a dynamic this year at play that's quite different than, let's say, last year with Nick Bosa. And that is, the 49ers invested their first round draft choice in a wide receiver named Ricky Pearsall. And they also have a very deep wide receiver core. And they drafted a kid in Jacob Cowing in round 4 that a lot of people think is really, really good. So it's not just going to be your typical holdout of camp started, there's no Aiyuk. It's going to be camp started, and by the way, Brock Purdy looks pretty good, or not, throwing to these other receivers. And if he does look really good throwing to these receivers, that probably can't help Aiyuk's cause.
Steve in the comments is saying, like, Damon, your statement is nuts. The Niners hold all the cards due to Pearsall. Look, this isn't about who's got leverage or who's got one-upsmanship. This is about trying to win a Super Bowl. And I think the 49ers will be further away from winning a Super Bowl without Brandon Aiyuk than they are with him. So that to me,
I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking about this year. I'm not worried about the who's saving the million, who's getting the million, who's got the leverage play, who's happy, who's sad. There's one thought that goes through my mind. Winning a Super Bowl, you're closer to it with Brandon Aiyuk than without him, especially if he were to be traded for, future assets, not actual tangible guys taking snaps this year. So, look, yeah, I mean, you can say, my statement is nuts. This is the last best chance to win a Super Bowl as this team is currently constructed. And as they are currently constructed, Brandon Aiyuk plays a very large role in this construction project. So let's not pretend that this is just, oh yeah, and what'll happen is Ricky Pearsall will walk on water, win Rookie of the Year, and nothing matters. Okay, like if
they don't need Aiyuk.
Right. If Ricky Pearsall is Randy Moss, then everything's fine. Got nothing to worry about. We're good. But if he's not, and if he doesn't even catch 35 balls, which is not out of the question, Ricky Pearsall might not have 100 snaps offensively this year. There's a reality that could happen. So, we don't know. We don't know. What we do know is Brandon Aiyuk.
I think he's going to play more than that.
Offense.
I think Pearsall is going to wind up playing significantly more than most people think. I just think that he's too versatile. He's too useful. He's got too good of ball skills. I think they'll wind up using him a lot more than maybe it seems right now. I mean, it's easy to say, well, he's your number 4 wide receiver, and your number 4 wide receiver last year caught X number of balls. So Ricky Pearsall this year will catch X number of balls. But I don't think that's the way it's going to pan out at the end. Do you?
No. I mean, one player's success doesn't really relate to the next player, but I'm just going by, what Kyle Shanahan has done with his rookie receivers. He's used them reluctantly throughout his entire tenure here. So we'll see. I hope Ricky Pearsall leads the team in catches, leads the NFL in yards and touchdowns, because that would just be great if he did that. It would make everything easier. But that's a huge assumption to be making. Again, Steve comes in with Aiyuk disappeared during a Super Bowl. So how closer are they? Well, look, Kansas City won that game. George Kittle wasn't to be found. Deebo Samuel was useless. You want to let go of them too? Christian McCaffrey fumbled. What are you going to cut him? I mean, the Super Bowl's over. Like, I don't want to hear another word about that Super Bowl. It's done. There's nothing that can ever happen to change the outcome. It's the next Super Bowl that matters. It's the games that are in front of you that matter, not the ones that are behind you. And by the way, this kind of brings me up to speed on today's thumbnail theme, because Kevin sent me a text last night, Larry. He's like, what do you and Larry want to talk about tomorrow morning? And I'm like, well, I got a theory, but it's so abstract. I don't know if you're going to be able to capture it in a thumbnail. But what I kind of want to get into is how the Boston Celtics have delivered a lesson, not for the 49ers, but for 49ers fans. And I hope that they pay attention to this lesson.
Uh-oh, now we're taking a lesson from Celtics fans?
We're taking a lesson from the Boston Celtics to 49ers fans. The Boston Celtics were on the edge of being a champion for a long time. Sound familiar? That's the world that the 49ers have been living in. They've been very well built, very well run, very well coached. They've been an outstanding outfit who are guilty of one thing, not crowning themselves champions. There was all sorts of break up Tatum and Brown, break this team up. They're not going to get it done. I've seen enough. My opinion outweighs the fact that, Jason Tatum can't win playoff games. All right, well, he's won 58 of them before this playoff run even started this year, so he can win playoff games. This sounds an awful lot like the Kyle Shanahan will never win a Super Bowl. He can't win big games. Kyle Shanahan's already won 8 playoff games. That's an awful lot of playoff wins. That's more playoff wins than most coaches will ever have playoff appearances. So the patience that paid off for the Boston Celtics, I think, is waiting there for the 49ers.
So you come today to preach patience.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm here to
be
preach.
Patient, Niner fans. Be patient.
I'm here to preach. Recognize what really good is. The 49ers might have frustrated you, but to evaluate them as anything
that's
really good.
I mean, this is the petulant child syndrome that has run amok among many fan bases, which is I want it, and because I want it, it's my birthright and I should have it. And if I, and once again, if you're not, it's like the it's like the Will Ferrell from Talladega Nights. If you're not first, you're last. It's like that's America right now. If you're not first, you're last. I watched the MLB Networks presents retrospective a couple nights ago on the Atlanta Braves, and the Atlanta Braves won 14 division titles, and yet they only really climbed to the top of the mountaintop in '95 against the Indians. Other than that, they never won a World Series, and they were going to be called the Buffalo Bills of MLB. And the Bills, got close, but no cigar. And instead of being like, yeah, that's a great team that just didn't win at all, it's like, they're losers.
Right.
Yeah, Marv Levy's a loser. Cornelius Bennett, you're a loser. It's like, I guess. Hey,
Larry, Willie Mays, 0 World Series, loser.
No, he won a World Series.
When?
54.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's
54. Giants beat the Indians. He caught the ball against Vic Wertz.
That's right. Okay, but only
zero World Series in San Francisco.
Well, that's where I guess where I'm coming. Loser. Yeah. I mean, there are people.
Dan Marino,
loser.
It's like
loser.
Charles Barkley, loser.
Wasn't even good. You suck, Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and I understand that sometimes to accomplish a goal that's really, really tough, that the participant has to have that kind of attitude, which is nothing except for winning our ultimate goal is acceptable. Anything short of our ultimate goal, we will not celebrate. I understand that from the participants. But when you're an observer and it's entertainment and, there's tremendous entertainment along the way, and a baseball season starts in, March with spring training, does not wrap up till November. Football season starts in July, wraps up in February. There's a lot of joy that goes into covering the 49ers and being a 49er fan in July and August and September and October and November and December and January. And I'm not going to sit there and just be like, it all sucked because they lose to Hall of Famer Andy Reid, Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes. It's like, that's why they have expensive, elaborate parades in the middle of sometimes trying economic times, oftentimes paid for by civic, by cities, by civic leaders who make the decisions. Why do they do that? Because it's rare. It's rare. Hardly ever happens. You're involved in a championship parade. I think we're spoiled a little bit. The Giants give us 3 and 5 years. The Warriors gave us 4, right? 4 titles in how many years?
If where your season ends dictates your fan happiness,
I mean, it's okay, but it's just acknowledge that you're going to be miserable 90% of the time. If you are okay walking around being like, hey, man, I'm miserable most of the time, then go for it. Then have that kind of bottom line, cutthroat, win or lose kind of an approach. But the rest, I mean, to me, I don't know that that's I respect it because it's like, it's eyes on the prize. And that I'm that kind of a person, but I don't respect it from the standpoint of life is about the journey, not the destination. And these sports seasons are almost like little microcosms of life. And I just think you ought to look at it that way. That's just Larry Krueger giving you his opinion on the 19th of June, 2024. Take with it what you will. If it impacts you, awesome. If you don't, that's so be it. It's not the end of the world. But I just think that we all would be a little bit more balanced in our coverage and our assessments of these teams if we were a little bit more balanced in the way we look at things.
But
Andy Reid was not a loser in Philly.
At least be consistent. So if your happiness is dependent on where your football team ends up in the final rankings, 49ers fans should be the second happiest fan base in the NFL, right? There's only one fan base who could claim to be any happier, the Kansas City Chiefs. Other than that, the 49ers, we're not celebrating silver medals, but you shouldn't be walking around like you root for a team that is lost in the woods and just makes you miserable. Again, outside of winning a Super Bowl, the last 5 years of 49er football has been spectacular. It's been a really good 5-year run.
I mean, you can go further back. You want to go back to Harbaugh.
The Kansas City Chiefs, Larry, they have won the second most amount of football games in this league over the last 5 years.
Yeah. The Niners are the Chiefs are the dynasty of this era. The Niners are the second team. Now, many of us saw them be the first team in 81, 84, 88, 89, 94. We saw it 5 times. And so we got a little spoiled along the way. And now we've gone there, watched our team get to the Super Bowl, the ultimate game, 3 times and lose 3 times. And it's painful. And it gives you a lot of the what ifs. And I can understand how Browns fans and some of these other fan bases that have been beaten down through the years feel a little bit. You have a couple that you let get away, and suddenly it's like, But let's just, if you want to say you're frustrated, say you're frustrated. You want to say, hey, I'm not crowning Kyle Shanahan until he climbs to the top of the mountaintop. I think that's fine too. But
there's a difference between not crowning the guy and demanding for his head fired.
Yeah. The calling for his head crowd, it's like, do you realize how bad? It's kind of like looking at a picture from the 70s of like a bad haircut that you had, and you're like, oh God. Or some terrible style that you were into bell bottoms or whatever the style of the day was.
That collar is the size of a hang glider.
Yeah. Like that look didn't age well. Well, if you're in the Shanahan needs to be fired category, that look's not going to age well. I mean, I just look at it this way. Was Andy Reid a bad coach in Philly? No, he was a great coach in Philly. He had a ton of success. He didn't win the ultimate game. After 13 seasons, they said, you know what? Maybe it's not going to happen here. And they moved off. But man, that's a bad decision in hindsight because the guy's won 3 and he may win 4. And, he's proving to be the head coach of his era. And the Eagles have gone from, they won a Super Bowl with Peterson, but now they're on to, Tears for Fears, Sirianni, and who knows what's around the corner. So I don't know. To me, it's like Shanahan is with the Niners what Reid was with the Eagles, except he's 6 years in or 7 years in, not 13 years in. And I'm not saying give him 6 more years, but I'm saying, appreciate what you got. Understand you got one of the NFL's better head coaches, and he needs to grow, and he needs to change, and he needs to hone his craft a little bit tighter, a little bit more to climb to the top of the mountain. It's not like he's without blame. So if you want to hold his feet to the fire, that's one thing, but to jump up and down and be like, he's the emperor has no clothes and Shanahan needs to be fired, and you never have. None of these people ever follow that up with they need to fire Shanahan and hire this guy. And it's always fire Shanahan and that's it.
Right.
And once again, I'll say this, I'm not a contractor, but guess what? If you're doing a kitchen remodel and you want me to bring a sledgehammer over to your kitchen, I can sledgehammer out your kitchen, and I'm not a contractor. I just can't build up the kitchen after I sledgehammer out the old one.
Right.
So that's all you're doing with Shanahan. You're taking the sledgehammer to Shanahan, but it takes a lot more skill to then build up that kitchen again. And nobody has any solutions or any answers or even any ideas of who should replace him.
Before you rip out the stove, by the way, you better have your next stove picked out before you start that demolition.
You would think.
You would want to know what the next range, stove, dishwasher, refrigerator, where it's going. You're going to want to consider counter space before you just hit the nuclear option. Right. And yeah.
I'm doing a kitchen remodel. Oh, that's cool. What's the first thing that you did? Did you price cabinets? Did you look at countertops? Did you look at appliances? No, actually, the first thing I did, I told my wife we were going to do it, and then I went in the garage and got a sledgehammer and just bashed everything out. Oh, well, what are you guys doing in the meantime? Oh, I don't know. It's like, idiot. Yeah, you're an idiot.
Ordering a lot of DoorDash and Uber Eats.
Yeah, it's like
your backup plan there.
It's like you went from a guy who's like, hey man, this guy's on top of it, man. He's making things happen. He's changing out his kitchen to what the hell? He just took a sledgehammer to his kitchen and he hasn't even ordered anything, and he's probably going to be sitting there eating on paper plates in the dining room or in the living room for the next 6 months.
Yeah, look, there is a lesson to be learned, though. When you know you got really good, and the Niners know that they got really good, you keep it together as long as you can. And really, the Golden State Warriors and the Kansas City Chiefs have a similarity between them, because it feels like both of these franchises, because of their franchise and historically significant players that lead them, jumped to the front of the line of we're competing for a title and got to stay there and win championships ahead of what a normal timeline is. The Warriors cut the line and went right to the championship round, thanks to Curry, and the Kansas City Chiefs have done that too. Normally, to win a championship, championships are like diamonds. It takes pressure and time to build them. And the Boston Celtics were under an awful lot of pressure. And they just invested in more time in a group that they believed in. And it worked. And that is the only bit of advice that I have for 49ers fans. You have.
Stay the course, is what you're saying.
In spite of the completely nonsensical noise that the dumbest content creators have served to you, any evaluation of the 49ers other than this is a well-coached, well-run, well-built, outstanding outfit that is very close to winning a championship is wrong. It's wrong. Because that's who they are. You're going full Bobby McFerrin this morning. They are favored to win every fucking game on their schedule this year. How bad are they?
Don't worry, be happy is what you're saying.
How bad are they? They're favored to win every game on the schedule.
Well, it goes beyond that, actually.
What's your problem? No, seriously, what is your problem? Favored to win every game, but you don't like? Well, I'm worried about this guard, and this guard is going to undo everything and all things. Maybe, but let's let it play out here, right? I mean, they're favored to win every game that they have on their schedule. Tell me more about what they've done wrong, please, you genius.
One of the
genius.
The Niners and the Chiefs have the top odds right now to win the Super Bowl. As far as ESPN's analytics, I just read the ESPN analytic article last night. So the Niners have a 16% chance of winning the Super Bowl, right? According to ESPN's analytics. Kansas City's got a 12% chance of winning the Super Bowl. And it's worth noting that in 3 of the last 6 seasons, so in half of the last 6 years, the team that had the best preseason chance to win the Super Bowl, according to this ESPN analytics, ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, if you're a 49er fan and you want encouragement, there it is right there. ESPN Analytics gives you the highest percentage chance of winning the Super Bowl. And in half of the last 6 seasons, the team that was given this designation went on and won it all. So, doesn't get any better than that, really. I mean, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. And there is a time, I will say this. I mean, there's a time for everything. Like, there's a time for every plan. There's a time to, like, you know what? tear it down and build it back up. We're not going to, like right now, there's a lot of debate in Warrior land. What do the Warriors do? And the Warriors should not do what the Boston Celtics did. And the Warriors should not do what you're advising the 49ers to do. The Warriors should not stay the course, because if the Warriors stay the course, they're dead. They will not win any more rings by staying the course with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Chris Paul. They can't. No, sorry. You're winning. No more rings. So staying the course for you, not a good plan, because you don't have the horses. The window is open. The window has closed, and there's no way to reopen it with the same core. So they need to kind of tear it down, think bigger, maybe knock out a wall or two, maybe change the foundation a little bit, right? Because they got
so here there are two roads. There are two roads that the Warriors can walk down, and either way, Steph Curry drives the car. So here are the two roads for the Golden State Warriors. Let everyone know that you are lopping off your ability to compete a couple of years down the road in the name of pushing your chips into the middle of the table one last time and trying to come up with the "we've got one last monster in us" basketball team, and try to go win a title with that, knowing that you are robbing your future to try to make a fortune here in the last days of Steph Curry's present. So you could make that deal if it's out there. Or you can...
If it's out there is the big one.
If it's out there. Or you go in the other direction where you officially preside over a rebuild with as much competitive dignity as you can still afford Steph Curry. And Curry's then goal is to not win another championship as much as to land his career as well as possible and leave this franchise officially in better shape than when he found it at the end of his career, so it doesn't come to a screeching halt like the Lakers when they, when it was over with Kobe. And that's really it. That's it. The Warriors go full on Joe Lacob, light years, pushing it all in, knowing that you are not going to be very good 5 years from now, whether we win another title or not. Like, we're taking one last huge push to win one more.
And even so, as a Warrior fan, I would say I would only sign off on this, not just as like a step in that direction, but if there's going to be enough steps in that direction to make it a reality. Like, I'm not going in that direction just hoping that I can reopen the window. Right. I have to know what move 1, 2, 3, and 4 are, and so I can evaluate if I make move 1, 2, 3, and 4, am I back in that window?
Right.
Otherwise, I think the smarter move is to look at the reality and say, you were a play-in team that got destroyed by Sacramento. There's all kinds of younger, more talented, deeper, better teams that are sprouting up in both conferences. Your chances are nil of actually reopening this window. So kiss off Klay Thompson and trade off Draymond Green and move off of Paul and Wiggins and start moving some guys around and do the best you can do to build around Steph that way.
Right.
And to me, that is the right game plan for the Warriors. But for the Niners, they've got one of the older rosters in football. They also have one of the best rosters in football. And they've got a 24-year-old quarterback in his third year who's probably entering his super prime and is probably going to be better in year 3 than he was in year 2. He was better in year 2 than he was in year 1. So I look at the 49ers as an ascending, deep Super Bowl contender who's yet to climb to the top of the mountain. They're in go-for-it mode deluxe, where the Warriors, in my opinion, should be in kind of sell-it-off mode.
Right.
I mean, it's all subjective, right?
Right. No, but I mean, it is subjective, but it's also realistic. It's also realistic. The chances of the Warriors trying to capture one more title as they are now inferior to the chances of trying to put something new together and maybe win that way, in my mind anyways. Depends on how they see it. And again, the one player, the one move, the God move that will change everything. I don't know what that is or how they make it. And I'm not ready to have that discussion right now. The 49ers, again, there is a lot of similarity to the Boston Celtics. You got a really well-built team that is on the verge of something special. And the fact that they haven't done it, while people were saying, it's time to blow it up, it's time to blow. No. They weren't in that part of their life cycle where it was time to blow that up. That it was not there. It could have happened, but Brad Stevens was smarter. Brad Stevens, was able to replace Ime Udoka with Missoula, who has,
which was that was a trying time for that whole entire organization.
And what a ballsy hire. I mean, the guy had next to no elite head coaching experience, but they thought he was the right guy for the job. They put him in. The guys bought in. Tatum, Brown continued. They built six of their top six players were all acquired by trade, if you want to include the draft picks that became Tatum and Brown. And they built it, and with time and pressure, they found their diamond. There's no team in football with more pressure on it, so that's not a problem. They have had an incredible time over the last 5 years. Let's see what this year is. It should be a Super Bowl.
I love the Kings fan. I love the Kings fans and the Warrior fans going off in the chat against each other. Sean Turner, give me 4 rings over a dumb purple laser light.
I think the beam is cool. I like the beam.
Oh, the beam is awesome. The beam is cool, but I love how we have really, Giants fans, Niners fans, Warriors fans, and a whole lot of Kings fans. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of Kings fans who are Niner fans. So that you get the bleed over. The biggest group of fans on our channels, you and I, are the Niners, because we talk mostly Niners, or a lot of Niners, and the Niners are the biggest thing. And of those Niner fans, they're all in NorCal, but some of them are Warriors fans, some of them are Kings fans. So as soon as the conversation turns to Warriors basketball, the Kings fans are like, yeah, you guys are done. And then the Warrior fans like, yeah, we got 4 rings. You got a freaking laser.
Either way, Harrison Barnes has all played a large role in our lives, and he's the tie that binds us.
Dwayne Coswell's not walking through that door. Here, we got this one. Look at this one. Niners worldwide. Jason Williams all day.
White chocolate.
White chocolate. Can I tell you my Jason Williams white chocolate story?
Please. I've never heard this.
Oh, this is awesome. Do you remember when the All-Star game was here?
Yeah, Vince Carter's iconic elbow dunk. Yes.
Yeah, so White Chocolate was an all-star that year. Or maybe he wasn't an all-star, but he was part of All-Star Weekend. Anyway, they all were staying at the St. Francis, and Agnew's told Chris Townsend and I, go down to the St. Francis and get some freaking interviews with these all-stars. And I'm like, well, so I go down there, talk to the NBA.
By the way, I love that just right there. Well, Bob, we're really
well, I'm like, Agnew, first of all, this isn't baseball. It's not like they're just sitting around their locker.
Right. Don't we have John Schrader to go do that?
Yeah, exactly. Where's Schrade? Go get big Bruce McGowan. So anyway, so we rolled down there, and I talked to and I was joking with Townsend. I'm like, dude, we're gonna get shut out, and Agnew's gonna get pissed. And he's like, I know. He's like, none of these NBA guys are gonna talk, and the PR guy's gonna jerk us off, and that's it. We're gonna get nothing. So we go down there, and sure enough, the PR girl's like, we don't really have any media availability, and she's giving us the whole thing. But guys are in their rooms, and if you want, you can knock on their door. I'm like, really? So she's telling us we can knock on the guy's door. So
they were telling you what rooms the players were staying.
They didn't tell us what room they were in, but they were like, yeah, if you can, they don't have any availability down here, but they're just hanging out in the hotel. And if you want to get them in their room, you can get them in their room.
So she said, just go start randomly knocking on doors, and
she meant call. She meant call. Oh, okay. She meant call their room. Okay. But then she didn't have the numbers, and she kind of just passed me off to the front desk guy. Okay. So the front desk guy's sitting right there. And I go, hey, man, I know you're not going to give me what rooms these guys are in. But, we're down here from the radio station. We're supposed to get some interviews. Any chance you have any idea, bro, where, what in the St. Francis Hotel, which is many floors, many rooms, where any of these guys are? And he's like, and the guy looks around. The guy looks to his left, looks to his right. He's like, yeah, man, they're all staying on the 4th floor on the south wing. You can just, every one of those rooms is an NBA All-Star, 4th floor, south part of the floor. I'm like, So we take the elevator up. First door we knock on. Okay. The door opens, billowing marijuana smoke. It's Jason Williams coughing. What's up, fellas? Hey, man. We're we're from
like Trent Baalke?
KMBR. Can we do an interview with you? And he came out in the hallway and he gave us an interview while he was sitting there high on his own supply. So there you go. White chocolate came through. He was wearing a West Virginia Randy Moss jersey.
I'll just say this. They played together in the same high school team. They ain't making all-stars like that anymore. There's no way you are getting off the elevator on the all-star floor in a hotel without going through 4 layers of security. Times were certainly different there. I like it.
Times were different.
By the way, we got Trey Lance Monday says, roll one up, Bruce. Let me tell you, brother, when I get up to Tahoe, I cannot wait for the kids to go to bed, get around that fire pit, pull out a Bob Marley-sized joint, put on a little Grateful Dead, and just make s'mores till 2 a.m.
With no kids.
We Grateful Dead s'mores.
Damon starts his s'more making after the kids go to bed.
Oh, yeah. We don't know. What? Come on, man. What are you going to waste s'mores on the kids? No, don't do that.
There is something great about Tahoe. Are you staying in a cabin or a hotel?
No, we got an Airbnb with another couple. We have friends, Robin and Alana. They're great people. They got kids that are the same age as our kids. So it's fantastic.
Do they partake?
Oh, dude, you can't be a friend of D. Bruce unless you partake. That's the way it goes.
You gotta check.
Yeah, no, but yes, they're
sneaking out to the vehicle or anything.
They're down with the program, down with the program.
There you go. It's Tahoe in the summertime is glorious. Man.
It's great.
Absolutely
it really
glorious.
is. It's fantastic. So we're really looking forward to getting up there. This was going to be my mail it in show, but I'm going to do another one a little bit later on today. And we can make the transition to talk about Willie quickly here, but I'm going to have Marty Lurie join me later today to talk about Willie Mays. I know that
I am too, actually.
Oh, well, there you go. Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Marty and Willie really struck a friendship. And I know that means probably more to Marty Lurie than any dollar amount he ever made in radio. I mean, he got to befriend his childhood hero. He really did. So I'm looking forward to talking to Marty. I'm sure you'll have a great conversation with him too. One last 49er thing, though, before we get all misty and start talking about one of the greatest of all time passing away. The 49ers, Larry, should be on the phone with David Bakhtiari. Did you see that he told Adam Schefter recently in a podcast that his knee feels wonderful after his latest surgery, and he wants to play, as Bakhtiari said, a couple of more seasons? He didn't just say he wants to come back for one more go-around last dance anything. He thinks he has multiple seasons left in him. If I'm the 49ers, I'm on the phone with David Bakhtiari today to see, hey, man, how would you feel about playing right tackle? And God forbid anything happened to Trent, we'll move you over there where you've spent your entire career, basically. But
here's the thing on that. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't know how much Bakhtiari has left, but they like their tackle situation. I mean, I
know they do.
They like Jalen Moore. They like McKivitz. They like. Obviously, Trent is considered one of the best 5 or 6 best players in the entire league.
Wouldn't you like your tackle situation more if David Bakhtiari were a part of it, though? I mean, of course.
We'll see. We'll see what this summer looks like. I mean, they brought in, a couple veteran tackles, and we'll see what they look like. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to wind up with the 3 tackles they like: Jalen Moore, Colton McKivitz, and Trent Williams. Now, I would be in favor of trading for a tackle. I don't know that, or adding a veteran tackle via trade. I think I'd rather trade for like a Cam Robinson or somebody like that. Some veteran, kind of like when they traded for Laken Tomlinson. They found a guy who was kind of a high pick and just didn't work out in Detroit, and then gave him a second lease on life, and it worked out. If they could find a similar type deal involving an offensive tackle, I think that would be the way to go. as
Well,
far
again,
as
I
I'm
mean,
concerned.
are you gonna be able to trade for anyone who's got a better resume than David Bakhtiari? And oh, by the way, to add
It's just about
Bakhtiari,
body. It's just about how, it's just
but
about
there's
how
no
beat up his body is, really.
sure, but
'Cause I think he's pretty beat up, to be honest.
if the player's saying he's feeling better than ever, that's all I'm going by here in this story, obviously. But I just think that that's certainly a phone call worth making if you're the 49ers. It's a phone call. And again, to add him, it just takes money. No transaction necessary. You don't have to trade anybody. No man out to bring him in. So
Right.
it's just something that, in a slow news week for the 49ers, I saw that and I thought, there's a phone call that I'm making if I'm John Lynch. We're making an exploratory phone call for sure.
What would you say the Niners' biggest weakness is going into camp? Would you say, is it concerns over right tackle? I mean, here, the bottom line is McKivitz in the Super Bowl had a Pro Football Focus grade of 65.3. So a lot of people were like, I don't know how reliable he is. Then they signed him to an extension, even though it's kind of a reasonable money extension. Other people would say, their run defense is the number one issue. Linebacker depth, a lot of times people think it's a big issue. That the tight end depth could be an issue. Just the schedule looks like it could be an issue, to be honest.
From the center to right tackle, I think is the biggest unknown. Deep coverage safety, second biggest unknown. And what would this offense look like without Brandon Aiyuk is hopefully a question we don't have to ask ourselves when the year begins. But that is my other biggest concern. What are you without Brandon Aiyuk?
My biggest concern is just the D line. I mean, you traded out, you traded out basically 6 D linemen. I mean, you only have 10 D linemen on your entire D line.
You brought in Elliott. You brought in. I mean, I think that 49ers are going to try to do more with less. I don't think it's going to be this massive.
But I mean, they say goodbye to Armstead, Kinlaw, Farrell, Chase Young, Gregory. They really chased out about a half dozen defensive linemen, and they brought in Leonard Floyd, and they brought in Jordan Elliott, as you said, and Malik Collins and Yatir Gross-Matos, and it's like, we'll see. We'll see. But to me, like, what's Hargrave going to be? Is Collins as good as Armstead? Is Floyd going to be as good as I think? What about the backup defensive ends? Is Drake Jackson and Robert Beal, are they NFL? If not, can you find somebody off the street? Is Jordan Elliott going to play? Is Yatir Gross-Matos going to be able to play first and second down? To me, there was so much change on that defensive line, and the defensive line is such a huge part of what the Niners have done. I would say the depth and the talent and just the productivity of the D line. That's my big question.
I would say that a lot of the guys who were out, even though they had big names, they didn't have big production.
No, that's why they're out.
Right. To me, really maybe in terms of production, Dre Greenlaw's absence is probably something we should be a little worried about until they've proven that they can fill in for Dre Greenlaw. So, that's probably the biggest impact difference on this defense until they, look, if Malik Mustafa shows up and says, I got your safety coverage, you don't need to worry about that anymore. That'd just be fantastic. It's like at the end of Forrest Gump, like, we invested in apples and we have money now, so we don't need to worry about money anymore. Like, you're not going to have to worry about your safety play if Malik Mustafa really turns into Talanoa Hufanga 2.0, where he is, Pro Bowl level safety in his rookie year. That would be great. That would help everything. But I think it's a lot easier to replace your defensive line concerns with guys that are already on the team than it is to replace Dre Greenlaw, who we all know is a heat-seeking missile that makes this defense go. So that's going to be my biggest defensive concern. But offensively, center, right guard, right tackle being the least of my. I think McKivitz is better than people want to admit. I also think Spencer Burford could have, but center. I mean, who is going to be your center? And we see that the league is now prioritizing getting to your quarterback through your center almost more than it is with the edge play. So it's going to be tougher.
I'll tell you what,
than ever before.
What worries me the most about the Niners outside of the D line is just the rest deal. I mean, the over under is 11.5. I was talking about this last night on a stream. I'm going under. The Niners have won 12 games or more the last 2 years Warren Sharp, though, has the Niners as the largest rest disadvantage, minus 21 days in the entire NFL. They've got 8 games this year where they're going to show up with less rest than their opponent. That's the most in the history of the NFL. So even though, they're a great team, even though they've got a lot of great players, when you have that level of rest disadvantage, there's going to be a loss or two in there that nobody's banking on. I'm going to say they're going to go under the 11.5. So I like them to win, 10 or 11, but not 12. That's where I'm at.
That's realistic.
We'll see.
It's realistic. You and I have, I think that we had probably put more worry into the rest disparity than maybe it's worthy of, but there's something there. And if you're looking for all the things that the Niners could trip over and what are some carryover trends from last year that you hope to avoid this year, it is losing out when you do have that rest disadvantage. So, yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't haunt them. I seriously hope it doesn't haunt them. And it is a little odd that the Niners would have 8 games to this negative an NFL record. That is weird. I'm not saying there's any fix-in or conspiracy or anything like that, because I believe thoroughly that the NFL would very much want the 49ers to be champions again. Like the NFL doesn't do worse business when the Niners are good. They want the Niners to do brisk business because it's one of the biggest attractions in the entire sport. But it is odd that they would be so behind a rest disadvantage that it's historic.
Well, and it's it's the way the NFL is. It's really difficult to win year after year after year because of the schedule and the way the thing turns over. I mean, just give you an idea, almost every year somebody goes from worst to first. We see non-playoff teams make the playoffs every single year. This year, I just looked at the odds. There are 4 teams that were in the playoffs last year that Vegas is projected to have losing seasons. Browns, Rams, Steelers, and Buccaneers all went to the playoffs. Last year, all are projected to win 7 games or less this year. So we shall see how it goes. One Warrior rumored trade that I just read online that I think is kind of interesting. I want to get your quick thought on this. Would you make this trade? I'm reading online right now. A guy named Eddie Bitar is projecting a Lakers Warriors trade. Would you make this trade? Lakers get Clay and Wiggins. Warriors get Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and Jalen Hood-Schifino.
You want 2 Hoosiers on the Warrior? You want me to turn down?
I would do that. I would do that deal.
I would maybe do that deal too. I
like Austin Reeves a little bit. He's a shooter. Rui's a good athlete. He probably could be he's not the 3-point shooter that Wiggins is, but he's more of a power forward combo, small forward. He's a little bit of a 3-4 where Wiggins is more of a 2-3. But Reeves gives you then the replacement for the swing man. Rui gives you another forward. Hood-Schifino is a big point guard, right? Isn't he like 6'4", 6'5"?
Big kid, yeah.
Yeah. I think I would do that deal if I were the Warriors.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I would consider that. Now, look, having Clay haunt you with the Lakers, like that could hurt. I get it. But, yeah, I think
he needs to move on, I think. That's my feeling.
It's a change of scenery, I think. And here's the thing. I think that we need to have Steve Kerr separated from Klay Thompson.
Take that decision out of his hands because he just can't make it. He can't separate. He can't separate what he did for me as opposed to what he's going to do tonight for me. He just can't separate it.
Exactly. He's like, the phrase loyal to a fault. I think Steve Kerr is loyal to a fault when it comes to Klay Thompson. I'd much rather see Moses Moody get the opportunity to, he'll never be the offensive threat that Klay was, but he is such a defensive plus than what Klay is at this time. I think it comes out in the wash as the same type of productivity. I really do. So, it's time for the Warriors to break themselves of their habits of falling into their old habits, because their old habits will get them eliminated in a play-in round. We've seen that a couple of years in a row here. So,
yeah.
Look, Larry, Willie Mays' final season on a baseball field happened 2 years before I was born. I don't accept old man memories and nostalgia as evidence of this player was the best ever. I don't. At the same time, 25 million grandfathers from the stubbornest, least complimentary generation can't all be wrong. And the one thing that age group agrees on is that Willie Mays was the greatest player they ever saw. And Willie Mays, look, he may not have competed against modern athletes. He may never have seen a 98-mile-an-hour slider with 18 inches of break on it, not a single pitch of his career. You now see that in the 7th inning in every Major League Baseball game. So the sport is different, and everything has changed. But Willie Mays did compete against the inner sanctum of the greatest Hall of Famers of all time, and he was better than all of them in real time. So the whole all-time debate, I'm not here for it. You can only play in your time. Until we invent time machines, we can't figure out who the all-time greatest everything was. Against the stiffest competition in Major League history, Willie Mays was head and shoulders above them all. And his body should be laid at home plate like a president. He should lay in state at 24 Willie Mays Plaza, let fans enter through the left field gate, exit through the right field gate, and let the entire city of San Francisco pay their respects to Willie Mays. That's how much he meant to generations before us. That's how much he's meant to the city. It's how much he's meant to the Giants. And I think his funeral should be treated like a president's funeral. He should lay in state where the entire city can come through. I think the Giants should do that. What a shame.
That's the way it came down with Babe Ruth. People waited in line to see Babe Ruth one last time. All I can say is, I grew up in the Sunset District. My dad was a native San Franciscan and, was born in 1937. So he was very much from Willie's era. Willie was born in 31. My dad was very eloquent, and yet he would be lost for words, and he would just be like, he was the best. He was the very, very best. He went first to third. He went second to home. He played with passion. He was both maybe the greatest athlete that played the game and the greatest and one of the smartest players that played the game. I mean, when you think about that, when you're talking about maybe one of the greatest physical athletes, this guy was such a smart player, but his physical gifts were the thing that you saw, the obvious thing, right? You can see the power. You could see the arm strength. You could see the speed. So people usually, when talking about Willie, marvel at the physical. But if you talk to the people who played with him and you talk to Giants fans who watched his entire career, and baseball's the one sport you don't really know a player until he's on your team. You don't really know the value of a player until you see him every day. And that goes for middle infielders and it goes for superstar center fielders. And Willie Mays just happened to be the guy who was the greatest athlete of his era, but the smartest player of his era. And he played the game harder than you did. And when I say that, I don't say that just like, with applaudit without backing. My dad used to tell me that Willie Mays would play so hard that there were several years throughout his career where he literally collapsed in the heat of the summer, had to be hospitalized and, from heat exhaustion. And then, got rejuvenated and came back. I mean, that's how hard he played. He played 9 innings in the All-Star game. He played in 24 All-Star games. And we could sit there and talk numbers, and the numbers are impressive, right? 12 Gold Gloves, 24 All-Star games, 3,000 plus hits, 3,293 hits,
660 home runs,
660 home runs. I mean,
his career WAR is what, 150,
highest ever,
something, yeah,
highest ever. 51 Rookie of the Year, 2-time MVP, played 150 games in 13 straight seasons. Won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I mean, the guy, there's so many different things you can say numbers wise about the guy to describe his career, but they don't encapsulate it at all. When Willie hit 660 meant something. And let's be honest, he had 2 years taken away by his military commitment. He hit 50 home runs when he came back. Those were 2 years in his ultra prime. He probably would have hit 100 home runs in those 2 years. You had 100 to 660. Now you got 760. Guess what 760 is? It's more than Hank Aaron. So really, people walk around and it's such a weird world we're in. Some people are like, Barry Bonds is the home run king. He's got the most home runs. Other people are like, no, the real home run king is Hank Aaron. Well, guess what? The real home run king, if you wanted to really lay it out there, was Willie Mays. Hank Aaron played in Fulton County Stadium. He played in parks that fit his home run swing his entire career. Willie played in the Polo Grounds. Willie played in Candlestick in the years where there were like 6 or 10 home runs to left field the entire year in the early days, because the football bleachers. This is before the chain link fence. The football bleachers was the home run, and you had to hit a massive clout to get it out to left. Willie changed his game and started hitting the ball to center and right center to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So he was the greatest athlete, the smartest player. He played the hardest. When you're all those things, he was a true 5-tool guy.
Well, it wasn't the phrase of 5 tools was invented for Willie Mays, right? To describe what he did. And like you're saying, the smarts is one thing. There's a reason why poets and artists are attracted to the game of baseball above any other sport, because it provides moments of artistry and poetry and beauty. And Willie Mays checks all of those boxes too. What's the famous quote about Willie Mays? There's, in the history of the planet, there have only been two true artistic geniuses, Willie Shakespeare and Willie Mays. That's a quote. And it just shows you the amount of reverence and appreciation that a generation, who again was the hardest to compliment any one generation that has ever lived, they agree upon one thing, that this guy stood head and shoulders above all of them. And what a just tough situation the Giants find themselves in here. I mean, when's the funeral? What are the plans? Are they going to put it off to next week? The Giants are in Alabama. They are nowhere near where I'm guessing Willie is going to have his final services. So there's the logistics and the timing of all this. And look, the first we ever even heard that Willie was like under the weather was this weekend's announcement that he wouldn't be going to Rickwood Field. And then you thought, all right, well, he's 93. I mean, I'm 49. I don't really want to go anywhere either. I'm too tired. But so when you're 93, I can excuse it. But man, it felt like, everything that this Rickwood Field series was supposed to be was muted just by the fact that Willie Mays wasn't going to be there. And for him to have passed away the day before they get to Birmingham just changes the entire tone and tenor of this series. Like, it goes from being a celebration of life to now mourning Willie Mays' passing. And of course, they'll still be celebrating it all, and they'll try to put a rosy face on everything. But everything that this series was supposed to be, it now really can't be. And it's a shame. And the whole,
I actually look at it the other way. I think it's going to be more. I think it's going to make it bigger. It's going to make it bigger because it's going to be goodbye Willie, and it's going to be, must see TV Thursday night.
I hope you're right.
2 days before he's going to be honored. Unfortunately, he passes. But
did you see when the announcement happened and they put the picture of Willie on the Jumbotron at Wrigley, which shouldn't even exist, but it's there. So I guess we get it. The entire sky was orange. The sun was setting, and it's like the clouds knew what to do when Willie Mays died. They all turned orange. And there is some beauty to baseball, man. There really is. Frickin' baseball. There's so much about it that frustrates us, but when you look back and you appreciate it, it's beautiful. And have you heard Dave's KNBR call? Dave had to break the news, and
I heard it.
He absolutely got choked up and, didn't know what to really do with it. John Miller, I was watching, what was it, top of the fifth, bottom of the fourth. And it was a Dansby Swanson at bat, and John Miller broke into the news that Willie Mays had died like he was giving you a tap plastics pitching change read. And maybe
I didn't hear that. I was listening to Dave.
Yeah, maybe John had to do that so he didn't, get too emotional about it. But I was surprised how just matter-of-factly it got presented on the TV broadcast, and Fleming was in tears.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad moment. You're talking about the greatest baseball player of all time. It was a sad day for baseball. It was an enormously sad day for us Giants fans. It was a sadder day.
Well, Willie Mays is part
Giants
of San Francisco's iconography. There's
Willie is the ultimate Giant. He was the
Golden
ultimate
Gate
Giant.
Bridge. There's Alcatraz. And there's Willie Mays.
I think the best. If you watch the retrospective on Willie Mays, that plays all the time, and I'm sure he'll play all the time going forward. Every time the Giants are in a rain delay, it seems like NBC Sports Bay Area bust out Legends, the Willie Mays Hour. The final sentence of the hour comes from your old radio partner, Ray Ratto, who is really a great guy to talk to about these kinds of things because he's lived a lot and he's a great wordsmith and he's got great perspective and he'll do it justice, and he did. And to me, he had the greatest line that encapsulates Mays, and he said, "Willie Mays was the signature player of baseball's most talented era," and that's really the highest compliment you could pay him. He was the signature player of baseball's most talented era.
Right.
He played with Frank Robinson. He played with Roberto Clemente. He played with some of the greatest of all time, Mickey Mantle. He was a contemporary of all those guys. And yet he outshined them all. Well, he outshined Mickey Mantle in New York City. He outshined the great Roberto Clemente. He outshined Frank Robinson. He was better than Henry Aaron. He was just and Ray points it out. He was just a little bit better than every one of those guys in every category. There were guys that threw well, but Willie threw a little bit better. There was guys that fielded well, but Willie played a tougher defensive position and played it a little bit better. They ran the bases well, but they didn't run them like Willie did. They had power, but they didn't really have Willie's power. It's like Willie was the best.
Well, working with Ray for all the years that I did, Larry, he did change the way I thought about sports a little bit. And Ray hated all-time debates. Who's the best of all time? Who's the best quarterback of all? Who's the best running back of all? Who's the best center fielder of all time? He hated that shit. And he would always come back to, there's no such thing as greatest of all time. You can only play in your time. You can't be measured by modern standards when you played against competition that was nothing like modern standards. Again, Willie Mays never saw, not one pitch of his career, 100 miles an hour. Not one. Not one. He didn't see 18 inches of break on a curveball, not once in his career. Not once. Bob Gibson didn't do shit that guys are spinning in the 8th inning now. That's just the way it is. Players get better as time marches on. You can only compete against your peers. And like Ray said, Willie Mays may not have hit that 18-inch break, never even saw one slider, but what he did see was baseball's innermost revered sanctum of Hall of Famers, and he competed and was better than all of them in real time. So that's all you can do. You can't be better than in the moment in which your career exists. And Willie, as his career existed, was the best of all of them. Now, I got into this debate with Ray because I said, with all due respect to Willie Mays and Barry Bonds, neither of them is the greatest player. I mean, the greatest baseball player of all time is Shohei Ohtani.
Come on.
No, absolutely. What was Willie Mays' ERA, Larry?
Yeah, but that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. The concept would be ridiculous if it were happening conceptually.
Well, then is Michael Lorenzen like one of the 5 or 10 greatest players ever because he can pitch and he also can hit? Is anybody who can pitch and hit automatically vaulted above guys who couldn't pitch?
Stop it.
I'm asking a question.
No, but I'm going to answer your question. None of those guys, no matter who you could bring up, including Babe Ruth, to say, well, that guy pitches and hit. No one has ever hit to an MVP caliber level and pitched to a Cy Young caliber level at the same time as Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani can lead the league in home runs and the lowest ERA at the same time. If that's not the greatest baseball player ever, I don't know what is. And oh, by the way, he is doing it against 18 inches of break and 101 on the gun. So he's doing all these things that we could never even imagine, and he's doing it in real time against the stiffest, most geared up, tooled up competition of all time. And Ohtani is in a class picture of one. Again, Willie Mays was great, never pitched an inning. Right? I mean, never. So we don't know, but just.
I refuse that. I refuse to acknowledge that some guy who's a DH is better than Willie Mays because he can throw. Willie Mays did 5 jobs at once. The Giants right now, Major League Baseball players, if Shohei Ohtani trotted out to left field, he wouldn't even trot out there without a card in his back pocket that tells him where to play. That's 19 nerds spent 100 man hours on to tell him exactly where to play. Willie didn't have that card. Willie was that card in his brain.
Right.
So, I mean, think about that. So we're talking about changes to sport that are so significant that Willie said, you've got Maury Wills coming up and it's a left-handed pitcher and this is what he did last time. And here's where I'm going to play. And then I'm going to look over to Cepeda and I'm going to tell him, you get in here, and I'm going to look over to Willie Kirkland and I'm going to position him there. There's like 9 salaries now attached to that. There's like guys making like combined over millions of dollars to like figure out where those guys should play. Willie had that in his head.
Sure. Now let's ask Willie to start game 1 of the World Series. Not in center field. You're the starting pitcher. Micah Owings was a great hitter and pitcher. He was a pitcher and he could hit. He was really, and I mean, there's all kind of big baseball's littered with pitchers that could flat out rake. I mean, Don Robinson could flat out hit. No, baseball is not littered with pitchers who flat out rake.
Yes, not anymore because Tim Lawler raked, Alan Watson raked, Micah Owings raked. There were several pitchers who, when pitchers hit, that actually could hit. Times have changed in baseball. Now no pitchers hit, but there were times where pitchers actually could hit. There are examples of pitchers that actually were good hitters.
All right. Hold on. I'm looking up Micah Owings's batting average.
He could hit.
He
absolutely could hit.
Let me see.
Tim Lawler could hit. There's guys that can hit. Alan Watson was a giant. He was a very good hitter. Vida Blue barely, played in the American League most of his career. Vida Blue could hit. There are pitchers that can hit. I'm just saying that just because Shohei Ohtani is in an era and he's doing something that's unique, I wouldn't put him over Willie Mays. Willie Mays played center field in the Polo Grounds and was a dominant 5-tool player. And we're going to put Shohei Ohtani at DH over him because he had a couple of seasons before he hurt his arm where he pitched well. I mean, then I guess what about Ruth? Because Ruth also was a very good pitcher. He wasn't nearly as
good as Shohei Ohtani. Wasn't nearly as good.
He started World Series games.
Well, sure, but
I'm saying it's a unique skill set that Shohei has, and he's definitely, he's a one of one in many, many ways, and he's a freak in that way. But it's part of the culture. He grew up in a different culture where they said, you can pitch and hit. How many guys actually would be like Shohei Ohtani if the culture here was everybody pitches and hits? I mean,
look at it this
you
way.
do in Little League, but in high school, they say you're a PO, pitcher only.
Again, I've done this with Ray. We argued about it for 4 hours in a row. And at the end of it, Ray even had to say, if Shohei keeps this up for several years, maybe you'll be at it. But later,
I agree with that. But he hasn't, Damon. He's been hurt. He's not pitching right now.
Right.
And who knows? Some people don't think he's going to pitch again. So we'll see.
Let's see when he comes back. And here's the thing: if he doesn't pitch again, what he's going to do is lead the majors in average on base and home runs and RBI like for the next decade, and he's going to do it for the Dodgers. It's going to really.
I mean, he's a great player. He's a great player, but I can't put a DH. I can't put a DH over Willie Mays. I just can't.
The reason why he's DHing is because he can't throw the ball right now because of the Tommy John surgery. So
right, but I can't put a corner outfielder. Willie Mays played center field better than anybody.
Yeah, no, Willie Mays is special, and today's the wrong day to say anything.
And five tools too. Shohei doesn't have the 5 tools. I mean, there is something to be said. I mean, that's the one thing. If you do talk to Marty, one of the things that conversations that Marty and I got into in the last few years, we were talking about Elliot Ramos, and I think it's appropriate now that Ramos is up and he's doing really well. And I said, Marty, who would you compare Ramos to? And he said Willie Mays. Now wait a second. I understood exactly what he meant, because Ramos is 5'11", 188 pounds. Willie Mays was very similar in those dimensions. Ramos is a true 5-tool guy. He can hit with power, he can run, and he can throw. He has, the 5-tool player is very, very rare, really, if you think about it. Usually, like even Barry Bonds, as great as he was a pie thrower. He couldn't throw at all. He had to play left field, and he had to compensate for a rag arm by getting rid of the ball quickly. Elliot Ramos has a hose, and he can play center field. He's doing it right now with Matos out and Jung-Hoo Lee hurt. He's playing center field, and he's got power, and he's hitting for an average, and he can throw, and he can run.
And they're not paying him $19 million a year.
He's but I'm just saying, it's crazy to say Willie Mays, but I understand fully what Marty was saying. Ramos has a little bit of the Willie Mays skill set in that he's, it has to be put into perspective.
Sean Turner in the chat, Ramos greater than Ohtani. There you go.
Yeah, Ramos. But Ramos does have some amazing tools, and Willie, was a similar size guy. And I remember the retrospective. He's like, I could throw a football 70 yards, but I quit playing football because I thought they'd put me on defense, because that was the era. They didn't let, Willie Mays play quarterback. They didn't let Vita Blue play quarterback. You're going to play defense. So he didn't want to play football because he thought they'd put him on D. Didn't want to play basketball because guys would dunk over him. He was 5'10", 5'11". But in baseball, he could do what he wanted to do. And man, he was the best. He was the best.
I'll wrap up the Willie Mays conversation on my end with this. There's a generation out there, Marty Lurie's right in the middle of it. Your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your great-uncle, that this was their childhood hero. I was having drinks with a buddy of mine named Greg. This was about a decade ago. We're sitting at a bar, and out of nowhere, he hit me with a sentence that has stayed with me ever since. He said, when I'm going to feel old? I said, no, Greg, when are you going to feel old? He says, I'm going to feel old the day that Michael Jordan dies. I was like, yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. Like the guy who was the example of athletic excellence in our, right in the middle of our warmest, fuzziest teenage sports memories. Yeah, the day Michael Jordan dies, that is going to hurt. That's going to make me feel old the day that happens. And this is that for a generation.
That's so interesting. I think that's such an interesting thought. I looked at it this way, and it's because it did kind of hit me differently, especially when I saw 1931, 2024, and my dad was born in 37, and he passed during the pandemic. And I just thought to myself, you know what? This was not my hero. I was born in 70, right? I didn't see Willie play live. I'm too young to have seen Willie play live.
Right. His last season was 73.
Yeah. With the Mets.
Right.
I mean, that's the sad part is a lot of people remember Willie Mays falling down in the outfield in the World Series against the A's. And, how sad that was that, you had this great center fielder falling down in center field in the fall classic. But to me, what hit me, Damon, was just that this was my dad's hero. I mean, true hero. He loved Willie Mays, and I'm sure my dad was no different than many of your dads who all loved Willie Mays, and swore that he was the greatest of all time and could not be convinced otherwise. And I just thought to myself, to me, the passing of Willie, to me, serves as a little bit of a motivator. It's not, what was the word that you used to describe it just now? I mean, you said is it scary, or as far as, or when somebody died that made you,
when I'll question my mortality when an immortal of my teenage years passes on.
Yeah. Well, I looked at it as like, to me, it's almost like a reminder that this whole era that our parents are from is going to their final resting place. And that what all this is, life, it's all, the old saying, ain't nobody getting out of here alive. So I kind of look at it as almost like a motivator. Like, what, I don't know what I got. There's babies that die 10 minutes after they're born. Life's not fair, right? And nobody knows what they got left. We all think, oh, well, I'm 50, I've got, 25 years left. I'm 60, I got, 15 good years left. Whatever. I'm 30, I'm going to live for the next 50 years. But you don't know. You could step off a curb tomorrow and get hit by a bus. You could get a terrible disease and die. You just don't know. So I think more than anything, when I see like my dad's era passing on to the afterlife, it just, to me, it serves as a motivator to be like, you know what? That person that you want to tell something sweet to, tell it to them.
Right.
And that person that you want to say, I love you to, tell them. And that trip that you want to take it. And that experience you want to have with your children, experience it. And go out there and live. When I think of Willie Mays, and what makes me I'm enamored by his image and by videos of him, even just doing nothing, just running around, is that this guy played with joy. 3-letter word, but it means so much. And if you say, why do I love Steph? Joy. Why did I love Magic Johnson? He played with joy. Why do people love Willie Mays? Because he played the game. And JT Snow brought this up. He said something like, prepare like an adult, but play like a child. Play, that was his advice. Willie's advice to JT was like, play the game with a kid's innocence and with the kid's enthusiasm. And that's what Willie did, man. You don't work baseball, you play baseball. And that, to me, when I watch Willie Mays, and what's so striking about him is just the joy and the life. The guy had so much life, you couldn't keep your eyes off him. When you watch highlights of him, you can't keep your eyes off him. He was a true gem, and there was a joy. He didn't just play the game and play it great. There's lots of guys who play the game and play it great. He played the game and played it great, but played it with this joy that somehow transferred from him to us. And that, I think, is the true gift and the genius of Willie Mays, is that, the best, but also he played the game with the joy of a child. And
when you see,
and it's a child's game, right?
When you see a generation that is defined by its stoicism, right? Like the generation that rooted for Willie Mays is, they didn't grow up in the
put your head down and circle the bases.
Right. It wasn't the hug each other, love each other.
Nobody popped a jersey.
Yeah. No, it wasn't the love express your love for your child era that these men grew up in. Their, generations before us were harder. They were steelier. And,
we grew up in the 70s in what they call the me generation.
Well, these men get misty and weepy when you talk about it. Like, there wasn't a lot that brought my dad to like go, wow, something you're doing in sports means an awful lot. Like he loved that I'm doing what I love. But I remember the one day at Scottsdale, I was there covering spring training. I walk into the clubhouse early in the morning and some local restaurant had, put out a chafing dish of burritos all wrapped in aluminum foil. And they were for everyone. Like media, these aren't just for players. Like anyone can come in here and grab a breakfast burrito. And I did. And I walked over to a table and Marty Lurie and Willie Mays were sitting right there. And Marty says, Damon, come meet Willie Mays. And, I didn't have much to say other than what an honor, Mr. Mays. And I'm just there to listen to stories. What can I tell Willie Mays about anything? It was awesome. I sat there. I had a breakfast burrito with Marty Lurie and Willie Mays and listened to them talk basically for 15, 20 minutes. And it was so special. As soon as it was over, I got up, I ran outside. I called my dad. I said, Dad, I just had breakfast with Willie Mays. And there is not a lot that my dad going, ooh, like, I told him the same story about Mark Grace. Like, Dad, I just had lunch with Mark Grace. He's like, I don't care. Yeah. But Willie Mays had his full attention and it was very, very special. And we should, as you were saying, Larry,
I got a chance to interview Willie one time.
I think your whole point is hand people their flowers while they can still smell them. Like, what a shame that Willie will not be able to receive all the love that would have been sent to him at Rickwood Field as he was there for this, if he could have been there. It's a shame. So hand people their flowers while they can still smell them. And you're right. My great-grandmother, who buried more people than anyone else in our family, she buried everybody. She when she went to 100 funerals in her lifetime. And she always used to say, life is for the living. Mourn the dead, but remember, life is for the living. So like you're saying, go on that vacation with your kids. Spend your time with your friends, your family, your loved one. Bury the hatchet with people who you hold grudges against, because anyone's light could be turned out in an instant. It really could. So
it's called perspective, when it does, when you see people pass, it does give you a little perspective. I got chance to interview Willie, and it was with Marty. It was in the dugout of before Giants Yankees when Pac-Bell Park opened in 2000. Giants played the Yankees, and it was like a Thursday night. Willie was there. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. He was in the dugout, and I remember standing right next to Marty, and we sat down next to Willie and talked to him for 15 minutes in the dugout. I had my DAT machine or whatever the technology was at the time.
Right.
I wish I had the recording. But yeah, I mean, just Willie was one of one, man, one of one. And he made a lot of people really, really happy. And there were, the truth is, my dad used to tell the story that, when the Giants came west in 58, San Francisco had been a PCL town. In fact, I'm sitting right now. They actually one year put together a glass backstop, if you can believe it, right? And it was like the talk of like, oh, look at this. They got a glass backstop. So now people can see, clearly instead of the netting. First day, my dad said that somebody fouled one back. The thing exploded into a million pieces. Like on opening day, like somebody fouled one back and that was it. And it shattered. And my dad, had a chunk of it. And I've got it right here in my office, a chunk of the glass backstop.
You want to talk about bad ideas, right? Unless you have like bulletproof presidential limousine glass in there. What are you doing?
Before its time, let's just say that. But yeah, I mean, just, Willie was spectacular. And it's such an interesting thing too, because like I can remember as a kid growing up, we went to so many Giants games and they would have their old timers game. And Willie, of course, would come in in a convertible from center field. He was the big name then, right? This is 1977, 1978, old timers day. And here comes Willie Mays. And it's so weird when you think about it. It's like we were honoring a former great when I was 7 or 8, and I'm 54 years old with 4 kids now. And here he is passing now. I mean, I've spent, 35 years or whatever, honoring the great Willie Mays. And it just shows, I mean, what a long life he's had. What a great life. What an inspiration he's been to so many people. And, the one thing that we get to do, and it's not at all, I'm not going to compare what we do to what Willie did, but there is some similarities from the standpoint of, people will come up to me and be like, "Man, you must really enjoy what you do. You get to bring joy to so many people." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know if it's always joy. A lot of times they're probably pissed off." And he's like, my buddy's like, "Yeah, but you get to communicate. You get to touch a lot of people's lives through broadcasting." And in a lot of ways, that is what athletes get to do through their sport, is they get to touch a lot of people, and their impact on this earth is felt by a lot of people because they're entertainment and they entertain us. And in some ways, we kind of do the same thing. We entertain, and we get to touch and come in contact with a lot of people. And it is a distinct pleasure,
Well,
to
and
be
look,
able
I
to have that kind of connection to people, and have people be like, "Hey, you know what? I listened to you when I was in high school, and and I used to listen to you with my dad, and my dad's no longer with us, but when I hear your voice, it brings me back." And it's like, that is the gift of broadcast. It's
it
like,
is.
it's the ability to connect to, whether you like us or don't, whether you agree with us or don't. When you broadcast and you put yourself out in the public space or whatever, you do get to touch a lot of people's lives. You do get to impact a lot of people. And I've never, I've always appreciated that. I've always understood that responsibility. I've always appreciated that opportunity, if you want to call it that. And to me, it's just, I'm that's the one thing that I love about this profession, is that it's given me, and now you, of course, as well, and everybody who does this, an opportunity to to connect to the masses. And
Right.
and that's why, like, when you have the plus and we go out to a bar, or we get together and with some of the fans of the show, people, I love those. I love doing the meet and greets, because you can tell people are invested in shows that we've done, stories we've told, anecdotes that we've shared, and they feel like they know us. Like, the greatest compliment anybody can give me is when I'm driving around town and somebody will recognize me and say, "Krug," and I'll just get like the fist in the air. "Dude, I love the podcast," or "I love the show," or "Tell Damon he's wrong," or, just anything that, like, kind of takes them from their world to our world. And I always love that, because it's like, hey, you know what? This person feels like they know me, and I think that's so cool. And
Yeah.
I feel like I know Willie, and I don't know him. He wouldn't have recognized me. I did one interview with him,
Right.
but I felt like I knew him, and people feel like they know us, and it's a gift.
And radio too allows the creation of what I've always called, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, false relationships, because it's a very one-sided relationship. Being on the radio, I have let you into all of my inner thoughts, my inner monologue, my strengths, my weaknesses. It's all very naked when you're broadcasting on the radio. So when you're driving in your car, I'm the person that's been riding to or from work with you every day for a decade. So you do know me very well, even though I've never really met you. And
It's a great compliment when someone comes up to you, and you can kind of tell that they feel like they know you.
right.
And it always strikes my wife or my kids as like, "Dude, Dad, do you know that guy, Dad?" And I'm like, "No."
No, never met him.
He knew you. And I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's kind of this,
Yeah.
And that's cool. I mean, there's something really cool about that."
Look, just a few minutes ago, we got a message from David Young. He says, "Guys, I lost my dad 7 weeks ago. In those difficult months before he passed, you two gave me a respite from what I was going through. You do so much more than you talk about sports. You provide comfort." David, sorry that you lost your father. Thank you very much. I have a very self-deprecating.
That's in the chat here?
Huh?
He's in the chat here?
He is. David Young, going back to 10:10 a.m. is when he sent that. So about 9 minutes ago, back in the chat. But David, the highest compliment I could ever receive was, I was in the hospital with my dad as he was passing, with my mom as he was passing, and we had sports phone on. We would listen to KNBR at night. And my dad and I would talk about sports, and we would, talk about what we agreed with you, what we didn't like about you, and all this stuff. And you brought me and my dad together. And we do have, in my opinion, we work in the toy department. These are not important jobs that we have, yet to the people that get affected by them, it is important. And that is the highest compliment a broadcaster can receive, that you played a role in my personal life that made me forget about my troubles. And that is important. So
we are parked in what I like to describe as the toy department of life. That's where we've parked our rig, basically. Yeah. We're in the toy department of life. And so, and yeah, we'll get mad at each other and mad at topics and yell and scream, but it's all within the perspective of sports, right? It's all within the perspective of we're living in the toy department of life. And as long as people keep, always remember that would be in fact, there's a guy in here who had a comment. Oh, I started actually.
By the way, Sean Turner struck again. He says Damon's inner monologue greater than Ohtani.
Wolfie says, yo, Larry and Bruce, any tips for a first timer going live, talking 49ers and the NFL? Yeah, I've got a tip. Don't forget that we're in the toy department of life, and be yourself. And this is a Fitz suggestion from 1997. I first came to KMBR. Fitz was a young guy there. And I said, Fitz, you got any advice for me as I start my career here at KMBR? And he's like, just be yourself, because it's the only person that you can be every single day. And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty
deep. It's good.
It's pretty good advice. Yeah. And I would say the same thing to you, Wolfie. It's like, be yourself, man. Be yourself. You're not Damon. You're not Larry. You're not this person. You're not that person. You're Wolfie, and go be yourself and have fun.
And don't let anyone's feedback affect you or change you. Don't drown yourself in negative or positive feedback. Just continue to go. And no matter what size the audience is, do it for yourself. You should be hosting the show for yourself first, for an audience second. So enjoy yourself. That would be my best advice. And don't wait to start. When you think you got something to say, start.
Yeah, Sean, and don't put off good because you're delaying for great. Just go with whatever you got today. Yeah. And make it great over time. But don't worry about it wasn't great. Don't worry about that. Just start. Just start and make it better every day. I guarantee you, I went back to my first stream on YouTube. It wasn't great. And if we went back to Damon's first stream on YouTube, it probably wasn't great.
Incorrect, Larry. I was outstanding in this space from day one. I mean, day one. And people were like, holy shit, look at how good he is day one.
Sean Turner says, sometimes we laugh with you, Larry. Sometimes we laugh at you, but we're laughing.
That's it.
there you go. Good. Robert Prados has been listening to these guys for more than a decade, probably close to 2. I know what they're talking about. KMBR was really great at one point. It was.
We got the last
great stuff. I mean, I can remember
to Disneyland before it burnt down.
What's that?
We had the last 2 tickets to Disneyland before it burnt down.
Oh God, if I could share anything from KMBR with you guys, it would be the night that I told Ralph in a face-off that Ralph and I have had our first children within like 2 weeks of each other. Ralph had Tate, and we had Anna, right? So we were basically, even though he's quite a bit older than me, or he was quite a bit older than me.
Right. 25 years apart at the same point in life.
Yeah, but we were at the same point in life. And so we, and he was a single guy, and obviously I'm married. So I would tell him, hey, Ralph, if you have questions, my wife can answer. If you have questions about play groups or this or that or anything, here's my number, call us anytime. Oh, Krug, thank you. This and that. And he loved being a dad. But it's like, you really, that specialness of being a dad, it's like that was a special time for sure. But if I could share anything, so I told him, I said, hey, Ralph, I'm taking next week off. I'm taking Anna and the wife and the family to Disneyland. Oh, you're going to Disneyland. I got to tell you, we just went to Disneyland. I've got to, you know, I've got to tell you where to go. And I'm like,
Is this
great,
the
that's awesome.
15-part
He
voicemail?
left me 6 voicemails.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, I remember that.
Krieg, it's Ralph. How you doing? You got to go to Toontown. This is what you do. You go into the park. You go immediately to the back of the park. You take the tram to the back of the park. Then you go through Toontown. You make sure you get your autograph signed by the Disney princesses. And she really loves that. Then go to downtown Disney, and you got to have breakfast at Goofy's Kitchen. It's a little pricey, but he's going into this whole thing, right? And then it's like, boop. Krieg, hey, it's Ralph again. I got cut off. I guess I was talking too long, but make sure you go to Toontown. Did I mention Toontown? Don't miss Toontown. There's a little door right behind Toontown, and it takes you this back way. And he had the park down. He was just like such a thinker. So I came in, and I'm like, Ralph, I'm talking to Agnew. I'm like, Ralph left me a six voicemails on my work voicemail all about Disneyland. And he's like, shut up. I'm like, no, I swear. He left me 6. He goes, let me hear it. So I put it. See, he's like hitting the buttons at his phone, and he's listening to it. And he's like, Krieg, and Agnew is just belly laughing. His face is red. He's falling down. He's laughing. I gotta get Sal in here. He leans down the door, and he's like, Sal, get down here. Sal, come here. Salvador, who's had hip surgery, walking down real slow. What is it, Bobby? What do you got? What's Kruger got cooking in here?
Right. Tony Salvador, he stood up like a question mark.
I mean, he comes down. He's like, listen, Kruger got 6 voicemails from Barbieri talking about Disneyland. He starts playing them, and he's like coughing. Laughing so loud, and he's like, Krieg, and he's like, starts walking back to his office. He's like, Barbieri with a 6-bagger. He's like, I didn't think he could go with a 6-bagger. Barbieri's telling salespeople. He's like, Barbieri gave Krieger a 6-bagger. Oh my God, it was hilarious. And Ralph, all about, make sure you go to Goofy's Kitchen. It's a little pricey. I like to tip 20%. You don't have to tip that much, but it was really good. Tate loved it. Oh my God, dude. My God.
Yeah. Getting a couple of voicemails from Ralph in consecutive order. I got a few left on my phone in my days. I wish I still had them. I really do. There was no one like him. In the history of meeting another human being, I've never met another human being that even reminds me of Ralph Barbieri, Ralph reminded me of. He was
one of a kind.
He really was. He really was. And look, if this is, Willie Mays' final gift to us, what an important gift where we talk about memories and impacts. And by the way, we got a thank you from Wolfie saying, great advice, guys. Thank you very much. I felt that. So good luck to you, Wolfie. And
yeah, good luck.
And just enjoy yourself and don't get caught up in the negative energy, because no matter what you do, no matter what you produce, there's going to be somebody out there who tells you you weren't good at it. I didn't like it. Just ignore them. Just ignore them.
Yeah. Keep rolling. Keep rolling.
You know what I really like if I could have some advice for MLB Network.
What would you advise?
I don't want a 15-person panel remembrance show where you just show the highlight basket catch at the Polo Grounds 35 times in the same conversation. Give me a Willie Mays game. Give me an hour of 50 Willie Mays at-bats that you have captured on film. I want to watch Willie Mays play. That's what I want Major League Baseball Network to do over this weekend. Put together.
You don't want Costas to give you a speech about how he felt watching Willie Mays?
No, I want to see Willie Mays play, because again, he didn't play in my lifetime. I mean, I'd like
to see them retire 24, as Sean Turner points out here.
Like a league wide, like no one's ever
say goodbye to 24.
Yeah,
this is one of the greatest players that ever played.
But I don't think they're going to do that. That's going to be reserved for Jackie Robinson, and Jackie is in his own special category, and to leave him in his own special category, I think he's probably the only guy who's going to get the league-wide number retired.
That's the other thing that was really struck me watching the retrospective on Willie, is that, Jackie broke the color barrier in 47. and he propped the door open for Willie and Frank Robinson and others who came through that door in the early 50s. Willie was promoted 1951. And, to me, it's like, it's amazing that, he endured all the racial hate. He endured all the opposition that came his way. And yet it didn't stick to him. He brought joy and all the negativity that he endured in places like Hagerstown, Maryland, coming up through the minor leagues. And you heard Willie talking about all the things they would yell at him and scream at him. And I guess one of the stories is one of the announcers got on the PA in his first series in Hagerstown, and I guess Willie had lit them up in the first couple of games and was like, "Folks, please stop booing this guy. He's destroying our team.
He's kicking our ass.
He's killing us. Please stop booing him." But the fact that Willie
might not like his skin color, respect the home run.
Yeah, I mean, but Willie just, he played with such joy and such a smile and such a, and he wasn't weighed down by that, and he didn't let that defeat him. And it's funny. They were playing some highlights, and he said that his father, in his early days, because they drafted him out of high school, he was a boy basically, 17, right? He wasn't a man yet. He was still a young man. And he said that his dad called him every night and put up, back then, long distance phone bills, right? It was different. It wasn't like, hey, you had endless minutes and this and that. So it cost money to make long distance calls. He said his dad called him every night talking about baseball while he was on the road in the minor leagues, and his advice to his son. And it just it was sad. It was sad, but also it was so interesting. It was like he kept saying to Willie, "Don't fight back. Don't fight back. Just play. Just play. Don't fight back." And so many African American people from that era, and it's too bad that Muhammad Ali was so critical of Joe Louis, because Muhammad Ali came along at a different era. And the things that Muhammad Ali did, if Joe Louis had done them, Joe Louis probably would have been killed. As far as things that Muhammad said and did, Joe Louis lived in a different time, and yet he got painted as this Uncle Tom. He was called an Uncle Tom because he did what he needed to do to survive in the world that he lived in. And in a lot of ways, Willie Mays' dad told Willie, "Hey, don't fight back. Don't there's people yelling terrible things at you. Don't fight them. Don't challenge them." And to have somebody that you love tell you, when you're met with all this hate, don't fight back, and then to listen to your father and to have the kind of career and come out of Mobile and be the biggest star in New York City, and the whole story is just truly amazing. It's sad. It's sad that it had to be said, but it also is so interesting that Willie's dad loved Willie so much that he knew he was great. He just wanted to see him.
It's a story of perseverance and letting your skills define who you are, not letting other people define who you are. And again, how appropriate this conversation's being had on Juneteenth, right? The two highest profile African-American San Francisco Giants will not be at Rickwood Field, and that stinks. Rennell Brooks Moon would have loved it, and she would have been the home voice of that PA, since these are home games for the Giants. She should be there, and obviously Willie would have been there too. And it's just a shame that neither of them are participating. One not through his choice, the other through the choice that the Giants made. It stinks. It really does stink that, again, baseball's done a wonderful job with these special series games. They've nailed the Field of Dreams games. I'm sure they'll do a very good job with this. The Giants are masters of pregame ceremony and pomp and circumstance. They do it better than the New York Yankees do it, to be honest with you. They're great at it. So I'm sure it'll strike and hit the right note, but I can't help but feel that there's, very important pieces missing here. And And it's too bad. It's too bad. So rest in peace, Willie.
Yep.
You meant a tremendous amount to everyone. It's not just Giants fans. It's not just San Francisco. It's not just New York. Willie Mays was basically romanticized by everyone. And, there's a big hole in a lot of people's feelings today because Willie Mays no longer occupies it. And again, it brought me back to my buddy saying, I'm going to feel old the day Michael Jordan dies. For a lot of people, that day was yesterday for Willie Mays. So thank you very much for watching. I mean, I don't think we end with Trent Baalke ACL or more Ralph impressions here on the way out the door. We actually have ended on a poignant moment, which is rare for us, Larry. We should bask in it. Thanks to everyone for watching. Like and subscribe. It means a lot to us that you do that. The connection that we've been able to make with you throughout the years has meant a lot to the both of us. And the fact that you've followed us over into a new space, and Larry, you've helped me really establish myself here in a new space. It means an awful lot. So tell the people that you care about them while you can. So Larry, I'm going to wrap up with this. Care about you. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. I just want to say this. It really hit me last night. And maybe I'm a little emotional because I got my son home from college now, and I've got and Willie was my dad's hero. My dad was a big Niner fan, like basketball and other sports, but he was a baseball. He came from an era where baseball and boxing were it, and Willie was his guy. And obviously my dad grew up in North Beach, and my dad was born in 1937. So DiMaggio, took a lot of pride in DiMaggio. DiMaggio was a big name in North Beach at the Salesian Boys Club when I was growing up there in the 1970s. And I just, a little bit of, I feel like a little bit of my dad passed. I lost my dad during the pandemic, and I loved him. And I miss him incredibly. And I'm so busy now that I don't think about him quite as much as I probably did in the year that he passed. But watching Willie in the retrospective, and it just was a little bit of my dad passing again. And I just wanted to say thank you to Willie. Thank you to my dad. I mean, one of the things that I remember as a little kid, one of my happiest memories is I was like 4 or 5 years old, and my dad came home on a Friday night, and he's like, I got tickets behind first base, and we're going to the Giants-Phillies game tonight. And he had just gotten home from work, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We quickly got our stuff and, got my Giants hat, and I'm 4 or 5 years old. And I can remember walking up Candlestick, and it was a night game, and they still had turf, and Bake McBride was at the plate, and we get down to our seats, and we had seats my dad got seats in the first row right behind first base, and we're sitting there, and the Phillies are hitting in the top of the first, and Bake McBride hits a ball in the gap, and he had the huge afro and the helmet that didn't have the ear flaps, and it hits first base, and the helmet flies off, and the hair's bouncing, and he flies all the way around the third, slides in, and I was hooked. And I've been a baseball fan for life since that moment. And, I can remember, getting, watching my dad jump out of the seats and go, way to go, Mac, because he used to call Willie McCovey Mac. Way to go, Mac. And McCovey would hit one out. And just, the joy that my dad had and the incredible passion that he had for Giants baseball is where my passion for Giants baseball and sports comes from. And just with Willie passing, I lost another chapter of my life with my father. And I miss him. I love him. And that's really all I want to say. So R.I.P. Willie. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the dignity. To me, more than anything, if I use one word that I would use to describe Willie Mays, the man's life was about beauty and dignity. For Damon, I'm Larry. Thanks for tuning in to Wake Up. And Damon, have a great time in Tahoe. We'll rekindle this maybe next week. But thanks to all you guys for checking out Wake Up.